Welcome everyone to pre-departure orientation. Thank you so much for being here. Whether you're with us here live right now on April 23rd or you're watching this recorded session, we are excited to talk to you guys about study abroad. My name is Bobby Wilson Jr. and I am one of the study abroad advisors here in the study abroad office. Joining with us today is Marley Stein, who's the director of study abroad, and Alana Carroll, who's one of our study abroad coordinators. Regarding the orientation today, some of the things that we'll be discussing, we're going to go over cultural adaptation and identities abroad. We'll transition into talking about specific academic information related to study abroad. We'll review some health, safety, and wellness to ensure your mental, physical, and overall well-being during your time abroad. In addition, we'll provide some tips and discuss some preparation strategies for your program. Please keep in mind that today's orientation is an overview for all students going abroad. Some students might be going only for a couple weeks during the summer. There might be some students here who are going for an overall academic school year. So just keep in mind there's going to be some information that's relevant for some students, but not relevant for other students. If you have any program-specific questions, we'll hang out at the end to answer those questions. Our goals by the end of this orientation is that you all will be able to recognize what cultural adaptation means and how it intersects with your identities while abroad. We'll be reviewing our pass, no pass policy, grade conversions, course approvals, and academic differences. We hope that you all will understand some health and safety resources while abroad. You'll feel prepared for your program. And then again, keeping in mind that today is a general overview. And so with that, I'm going to hand things over to Nika, who is Loyola's Deputy Title IX Coordinator and Equity Investigator.
Hi, folks. Thanks so much for having me. Like Bobby said, my name's Nika. I use she, her pronouns, and I've been at the university for over 2.5 years now. And I am one of the Deputy Title IX Coordinators and Equity Investigators. There are actually 3 of us who work in the office. I'm going to be talking a little bit about resources that are available to you while you are studying abroad in the event that you experience discrimination or sexual misconduct. Now, of course, we certainly hope that doesn't happen. We want you to know that we're here for you if something does happen that you need support with. To that end, I just want to mention I am going to be talking about those topics. So please take care of yourselves. We recognize that this can be activating for folks. So just an invitation to please do what you need to do to feel safe and comfortable. Okay, so we're going to be talking about just a few quick things here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my office, the Office for Equity and Compliance, what we do at the university. We're going to talk a little bit about the university's policies as they pertain to sexual misconduct and discrimination, as well as a little bit about reporting and resources that are available to you. And we'll have a little bit of time for questions at the end as well. Okay, so just a little bit about the OEC. I won't read through this whole slide, but basically we are the university's civil rights enforcement office. So when it comes to all the civil rights laws that you may be familiar with, things like Title IX, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the list goes on and on. We are the office that's responsible for enforcing those laws at Loyola, in addition to making sure that our community is as safe and inclusive as possible for everyone. That looks like conducting investigations when we receive complaints related to sexual misconduct or discrimination, supporting students who have experienced those things or know folks who have experienced those things or are part of a process in some way, and also doing trainings like this one and outreach in the community so folks know that we are here for them if something does happen. Okay, so you're going to hear a little bit about this term, the comprehensive policy. That is Loyola's policy as it pertains to sexual misconduct and discrimination. It's a hefty document, about 60 pages long, but really the biggest takeaway that I am hoping you all leave this conversation with is that in the event that you or someone that you know experiences any form of sexual misconduct or discrimination while you are abroad, we encourage you to please report it. Basically, you all don't have to do the work of determining, oh, is something Title IX? Oh, does it neatly fall under the policy? That's not really the question at the point of reporting. If you or someone or someone that you know experiences sexual misconduct or discrimination, we want you to report so that we can provide support and be there for you all. One tidbit to just be aware of is that Title IX, as it currently stands, does not actually apply outside of the US. Interestingly, we just got new Title IX regulations a couple of days ago, and it will start applying outside of the US starting on August 1st. So we will be basically revamping the university's policies to reflect that. So you'll be receiving more information about that in the fall. Now, again, all of that being said, that's just like a little tidbit to know. Again, the message is if it's related to sexual misconduct or discrimination, it's something that our office handles even when you are abroad. These are just some of the different areas of harm that the policy here at Loyola covers. As you can see, it's pretty comprehensive, but again, a point I want to make, even if it doesn't fall squarely into one of these categories, we encourage you to report so that we can provide support and make sure that you're getting the help that you need, whether you're here or abroad. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of reporting and the support that's available to you at the university. So a misconception that I hear often from students regarding our office and the university's processes as they pertain to sexual misconduct and discrimination is that as soon as you tell the university that something has happened to you or a friend, a big investigation starts. The person who's alleged to have caused harm is notified, and an investigation begins. That is not the case. All reporting does is it lets the university know something has happened so that we can reach out to the person who was impacted and make sure that they have resources. The main resource that I want to emphasize is that they will receive an invitation to meet with either our office, the Office for Equity and Compliance, or the Dean of Students office to talk about their options. Some folks may want to move forward with a full investigation, but more often than not, people are just looking for connections to supportive resources for them. And the other thing that I will say is that we are equally able to provide that support and outreach, whether you're here in the States or you're abroad. We are very comfortable on Zoom, as I'm sure a lot of people are after the pandemic. So we are happy to meet at times that work. When you're abroad, we can work around the time change. I just want to make really clear to you all that whether you're here or off on your amazing adventures, we can be of support to you. So this chart basically explains what happens after a report is filed. So this is just fleshing out a little bit more of what I was saying. Every single time a report is filed, that first column, the number 1 column, is followed. So again, that's outreach to the person who was impacted with an invitation to meet, whether in person or virtually, and we have a conversation with them about their rights and options. And in particular, at that stage, we're asking, how can we support you? What supportive measures do you need? Totally separate from any sort of investigation or anything like that. Now, if folks do want to move forward with an investigation, which that's the right of every individual to do as long as it falls within the university's jurisdiction, we will walk them through that process. But just to give you an idea, it's close to 90% of the reports that we receive, folks are just looking for support and not necessarily going through a full investigation. So that's all I have for you today, folks. I'm happy to take any questions that you all have. The other thing I'll mention is that this isn't your only opportunity to ask a question. We are always willing to talk to students who have questions about policies and procedures and how things work at the institution. Both myself and my colleagues are more than happy to connect.
Then I will just add that, Nika, we will be setting this presentation up for all the students, so they'll have access to your email address and your office phone number as well.
Awesome.
Great. Thanks for being here, Nika. Yeah, bye. And so transitioning out of Title IX to talk about cultural adaptation. So a little overview of what we'll be talking about. We're going to go over the multiple phases of cultural adaptation, provide some examples of cultural adaptation domestically. So many of you likely have already experienced cultural adaptation, moving to Loyola Chicago. And then we'll provide some tips for managing culture adaptation and building intercultural competency. And so to understand culture adaptation, it's first important to understand how we define culture. Culture is defined as the shared patterns of behaviors and interactions, cognitive constructs, and effective understanding that are learned through a process of socialization. Such patterns identify members of a certain cultural group while also distinguish those of another group. Some key words that I like to include in this definition are the shared patterns of behaviors, and then this identifies some members and distinguish those of another group. The reason that I kind of point out these words is because shared patterns differ depending on the country in which you are residing. And so if we look at this chart right here and you go ahead and you look at the United States, if you take a look at individualism, for example, a student who is from the United States going to somewhere like Argentina, they might not experience cultural shock or cultural adaptation when it comes to individualism because Argentina is relatively similar when it comes to individualism. But if a student from the United States is in South Korea, for example, they might find themselves experiencing a different culture in a way that feels very different to the United States. According to some research done by the Center for Advanced Research on Language Acquisition from the University of Minnesota, South Korea is a much more collective society than the United States. And so this is something as simple as like sharing food, for example. In the United States, it might be more normal when you go out to eat that every person has their own individual plate. Whereas when you're in South Korea, it might look like there's one plate that everyone, kind of shares. And so oftentimes when students study abroad, they kind of find examples of their cultural group being distinguished to those from the dominant culture in that country. Oftentimes, aside from food, when students study abroad, they experience what's known as deep culture. I really like the concept of deep culture because if you look at this iceberg model of culture, for example, oftentimes I think when students and people in general think about culture, they think of culture at a very surface level, in a very surface level way. So they think of culture as like food, or music or like clothing, for example. Oftentimes, though, when people are abroad, they begin to experience the deep culture, which are some of those things that you might not realize just from looking at someone, but they're more embedded into the culture. So obviously this relates to an iceberg because when you look at an iceberg, you see the tip of it, but really there's so much more beyond that. And so a good example of this that I experienced when I study abroad is this concept of personal space. I studied abroad in Ecuador and I was there for a 3-month program, and I took public transit one day. I just took the bus, I got on, and the bus was completely empty. I was the only person on the bus. We ended up making a stop, a little bit down the road, and this woman got on the bus, keeping in mind the bus was completely empty. And this lady entered the bus and she came in and she sat down right next to me. And I remember feeling really frustrated because I thought, this entire bus is empty. Why would this lady sit next to me on the bus? But this was an example of, I'm from the States and I have this concept of personal space that looked very different than the concept of personal space when I was in Ecuador. And so again, this isn't something that you would necessarily understand by just, kind of looking at the culture on the TV or looking at how people dress. This is an example of deep culture. And oftentimes students who study abroad, they experience this deep culture and they're able to start identifying what are some of the cultural differences in comparison to the United States. And so sometimes these cultural differences can cause what are called cultural misunderstandings or cultural bumps. Essentially what this is, it's when a person has expectations of a particular behavior and they get something different when they're interacting with individuals from another culture. And so this was a perfect example of what I mentioned to you guys about me taking the bus. I just expected that everyone's concept of personal space would be the same as mine, and it actually was not. And this kind of caused some, this caused me to feel frustrated in the moment because I just wanted to have my headphones on. I didn't want to have to interact with anyone. And then we ended up having an interaction. And so these cultural misunderstandings are super common when students study abroad. With regards to cultural adaptation, the cultural adaptation process is the long-term process of adjusting to and finally feeling comfortable in a new environment. Something I really want to stress is that cultural adaptation is not something that happens overnight. cultural adaptation is a lifelong process. It's about learning and unlearning some of our customs. And so this presentation today, we hope to kind of get your feet wet into some of these subjects, but by no means is this going to be a comprehensive training that's going to make you guys experts in the cultural adaptation process. Just to kind of talk about a little bit more what cultural adaptation looks like, this is the cultural adaptation curve, which generally is a good way to demonstrate kind of the ups and downs of when students study abroad and they're going through cultural adaptation. So the first phase of the cultural adaptation curve model is the honeymoon phase, which I'm sure everyone probably can assume what that means. But essentially, it's you arrive in country, you're feeling super positive, really excited, and you're even super excited about experiencing the host culture. With time, students may move into what's known as the frustration phase. This could happen, for example, if you're in a Spanish-speaking country and you're trying to communicate in Spanish and people aren't understanding you. When you're in the frustration phase, instead of being excited and positive, you start to maybe feel a little bit confused. You feel frustrated. You might feel like you're not good enough. I think this is really common when people study abroad because you're basically the whole day experiencing things that might be very foreign to you. And that can be a lot of weight that's put on your shoulders. And so oftentimes students, they do experience frustration when they're going through the cultural adaptation process. The final kind of phase of this is known as adaptation and acceptance. When students are in this adaptation and acceptance phase, they start to not think of things as like good and bad. They start to realize that this is just how things are in that country, and they develop a sense of like understanding, and they kind of just know what to expect when they're in this phase. And so this is all these three things together are a part of the cultural adaptation curve, and students kind of move through it during their time in which they're abroad. A good example of the cultural adaptation phase was very likely when many of you moved to Chicago to study here at Loyola Chicago. Even if you weren't necessarily like, if you were living in Chicago, you could still experiencing this, just being on campus. But let's take the example of starting school at Chicago. You first move here, you're in the city. It's sunny out because, probably many of you moved here in August. You go to the Navy Pier, you try deep dish pizza. Everything is great. Everything is exciting. And then after a few weeks, the weather starts to change. It becomes quite gray. You realize your family, they're not here. Your friends aren't here. And you kind of move into this frustration phase. Obviously, with some time, you move into acceptance and you just kind of realize Chicago in the wintertime is cold. It's kind of gray, but, we have a great summer to look forward to. The winters are rough, but you just got to make sure you buy the right winter coat. So you kind of move into this acceptance phase where you just become adapted and you accept that that's how things are here in Chicago. And so many of you very likely have already experienced this before, and so you're well prepared during your time in which you're going to be abroad. This is very likely kind of what the cultural adaptation phase will look like for many of you. So, students, when they're in the honeymoon phase, they're up at the top of this graph with positive emotions. And then by the end of the program toward adaptation, they start to kind of be more in a positive mindset. Usually students are obviously in a more negative mindset when they're moving through the frustration phase, for example. We do just offer some tips when students are kind of going through that frustration phase. To build resiliency, we recommend self-awareness, connection, flexible thinking, self-regulation, and optimism as well. So self-awareness is just kind of recognizing that, yes, I am in another country right now, and becoming to terms with that and not setting really high expectations for yourself. When it comes to connection, developing a local support group when you're abroad is super important. Sometimes for folks, it even looks like maybe every week being able to connect with their family back at home. So scheduling a time in which they could talk on the phone with their family or have a Zoom call with their family. Sometimes this is a really good way for students to kind of fill up their bucket when they're experiencing that frustration phase. Flexible thinking is also really important. It's just kind of being okay with the uncomfortable when you study abroad and just be willing to kind of change things on a pivot if needed to. Self-regulation also very important, making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure you're not overdoing anything. And then obviously optimism, so thinking positively. When you study abroad, even during those frustration phases, you're learning a ton about yourself. Like I know for me, for example, when I studied abroad, I felt very lonely sometimes, not having my family and friends there. But then I learned this new sense of independence when I studied abroad, which has carried with me to this day today. And so I think thinking optimistically about your experience is also really important, and it builds resilience. So we're going to transition now to navigating your identities while you are abroad. And so this kind of looks differently for everyone, and a lot of it has to do with where you are as well. An example that I just kind of like to discuss is before I ever left the United States, I never really thought of myself as an American. I also never really thought about how other people might view me as an American. And so prior to, leaving for my study abroad experience, I didn't like go around every day being like, oh, I'm an American, this is what that means. And then when I was abroad, that was the first thing that people saw me as. And that for me was very interesting. And so when it comes to navigating your identity abroad, think about what your identities are and will you be a part of any majority or underrepresented groups while you actually are abroad. Different cultures also have different perspectives regarding different identities. So do your research ahead of time to kind of know what to expect. Something else that's super important is research local community groups associated with your identities. This can be a really great way to meet locals and just connect with those who have similar interests and similar identities as you. One other thing that I like to just be very forthcoming about is that our office, we can't represent every single identity that exists out there. And so if you would like to connect with somebody who shares a similar identity to your own, please feel free to reach out to our office. We have sent every and any kind of student abroad, and so we're happy to try to connect you with a student if you would like to do that, that shares a similar identity as you. And then we do just want to emphasize that there is no tolerance for microaggressions, racism, and harassment during your time in which you're abroad. If you do experience any of those things, please, reach out to us, talk to your on-site support staff. And then you also can talk to the Wellness Center, which we'll be talking a little bit more about further on in this presentation. And then again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your study abroad advisor. We're here to help and support you during your time in which you're abroad. With this, I believe, Dr. Keller, are you currently here?
I'm Daniel Keller. I'm one of the psychologists here at Loyola University's Wellness Center on the Lakeshore campus, and I'm happy here to present to you today about stress involved in studying abroad and how to manage the stress and sort of what to look out for so that you can kind of make it through your study abroad experience in as good shape as possible. And let's start with, first of all, starting what is stress exactly. And stress refers to our physical and emotional responses to environmental demands. We can go to the next slide. So it can actually be caused by both positive things or negative experiences. For example, marriage is obviously a positive event in somebody's life, but can also be very stressful. In the same way, divorce obviously is a negative event in somebody's life and can also be very stressful as a result of that. So it's good to know that even positive things can sometimes result in stress. And typically when we think about stress, we want to be mindful about how it manifests inside of us. And this can either be physically, for example, feeling tired or maybe feeling nauseous, can also be emotional stress responses like feeling really overwhelmingly sad or irritable. And then there's cognitive elements of stress, for example, having trouble all of a sudden concentrating or problems with memory. And so when we're seeing how much stressed we are, we want to look out for some of these things and then tend to those things so that we know that we should do something about it. Let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit about common concerns of studying abroad students. First of all, the issue of language. This can be stressful in that it can be difficult to communicate, obviously, in a different language, and you can never sort of express yourself as sophisticatedly in a foreign language than you can in your own. It's also really closely tied to our sense of identity, and so when all of a sudden you're no longer able to express yourself very well in language, it can kind of sometimes result in people feeling like a loss of identity or a loss of sense, and which can be stressful. Differences in educational systems. In some countries, education is really top down and hierarchical. Students are just expected to sit there and listen, versus in the US, oftentimes the university education is quite interactive. And so getting used to a different educational system can be stressful. Making friends or dating people, definitions of friendships vary across different cultures. The concept of dating may not even exist in some cultures. And so sort of being thrown into a situation where you might not know exactly what to do or how it goes can be stressful. Feeling misunderstood due to different communication styles, so nonverbal things. Some of you may sort of know this symbol or this gesture, which in the US typically refers to as okay. However, in different cultures, this has different meaning. In Japan, for example, this refers to money. In Russia, it refers to the number 0. And if you were to do this gesture in Brazil, you might be inadvertently insulting somebody. And so not knowing some of these things, again, can be stressful. Next slide. Adjusting to different foods and eating customs. Some cultures, of course, you eat very, very late, which can throw people off, or there's maybe different standards or attitudes, for example, even about things like food allergies. In the US, we are pretty good about, when you go into a restaurant, labeling, for example, what might be gluten-free. In some countries, people are not as sophisticated as in the US about that, or not as attentive to that. And so eating can become a stressful experience. Finding a culturally relevant faith community. If you were to go to a place like China, it may be hard, for example, to find a mosque, or it could be more difficult to find a church if that's something that is important to you. Experiencing discrimination. I think that can sometimes happen more often in countries where there is where the society is very homogeneous and not very diverse, and where people maybe not putting as much effort into diversity training as we do here in the US. And so in some of those cultures, people may feel more at ease to sort of say something that might be quite insensitive here, or somebody would never say here, or can maybe even be offensive. So dealing with that can be stressful. Loneliness, homesickness, feeling helpless, being fearful for your safety, feeling unsure of yourself, all of these things, obviously. It's oftentimes not one of single thing on this list that is sort of really throwing people off, but it tends to be kind of the accumulation of all these small steps of adjustments you have to make in order to kind of make it in the culture that you're actually going to. And so we want to be mindful of these things, and again, sort of be mindful of how we are impacted by those things. And so to the next slide, there I want to show you some warning signs that you may look for, which should be an indication that maybe you should start thinking about seeking help. Prolonged and intensive sad mood, or really any mood, sadness or irritation, should be warning signs that you should take into consideration. Pronounced changes in eating or sleeping habits. Of course, mood and eating and sleeping are tightly interconnected. We know that in mental health. And so sometimes when things go awry with eating or sleeping, then it also impacts our mood. And so there is an interactive effect between these experiences. Excessive anxiety or worrying that interfere with your daily functioning. You cannot stop worrying about maybe your family at home, or you cannot stop worrying about social interactions that are happening. Social withdrawal, not wanting to see anyone anymore, actually becoming physically ill because of stress. And then, of course, more serious self-destructive or suicidal thoughts, or even potentially having thoughts about violent thoughts towards other people. Those are obviously clear signs that it's time to kind of start speaking with somebody and getting some support. And then alcohol and or drug can be, sometimes people can go to those substances to kind of manage stress, which doesn't usually bode well, and a lot of drugs and alcohol can make some of these mental health conditions or stress actually worse in the long term, so not useful. What can we do for stress management? Maybe we go to the next slide. First of all, it starts maybe even with what is your attitude towards stress. If you sort of approach stress with, oh, that's a terrible thing and it's awful and I can't believe I'm so stressed, that you have a negative outlook towards stress, versus actually stress can sometimes be useful. We all need some degree of stress in order to even learn something. Stress can make us more alert in some ways also. So even changing your idea about that stress is an awful thing. Being patient with yourself, allowing yourself to make mistakes, for example, or staying away from judgment. Self-judgment is a really unhelpful thing. And when it's already hard to adjust somewhere on top of that, then get on your case about things is not helpful. Oftentimes people start fighting with themselves, which that's something kind of to pay attention to and avoid doing. And by fighting with yourself, I mean, you might feel down for a couple of days and you might be caught up in your mind, I wish I wasn't feeling so sad. This is wrong to feel this way. I wish I was feeling that. All of that is kind of fighting with your emotions. And the more that we fight with your emotion, it tends to actually prolong them and they stick around longer and basically then turn from an emotion to more into a mood state. So when you're more accepting of an emotional state that you are in and non-judgmental towards it, it tends to actually go away much more quickly than if you get on your case about it. Trying to see the adventure of study abroad and taking risks in small steps obviously is good. Making friends not only with students in your program, but actually with local students and with people in the culture where you're going. Maintaining your own cultural heritage, that can be especially useful when you're feeling homesick. So maybe bringing something that's culturally relevant to you and have that with you so that you can share it with people there, but also being open to kind of taking in culture from where you're going. Being able to kind of laugh and cry about things. Next slide. Obviously participating in being aware and knowledgeable of what the campus organizations might be that might be enjoyable for you and learn about the campus culture. Keeping a good balance of work and fun and maintain healthy daily behaviors. When we're kind of thrown off by differences and by uncertainty, maintaining routines or developing routines can be the quickest way to actually kind of find a way of normalizing living in a different place. So if you're, for example, used to maybe on a Thursday evening, you watch a certain TV show with your friends, maybe introducing that habit or keeping that habit while you're studying abroad can be helpful. Keeping up too much with social media of your friends can sometimes be problematic. It can interfere with you actually adjusting to the culture, but it can also make you end up sort of feeling like you can develop a fear of missing out, and you feel like you need to keep up, and maybe you go on all these extra trips on the weekends to different countries, as opposed to maybe the weekend might be a good time for you to actually relax, take a weekend to yourself where you can actually refresh your mind and your mental health. Dealing with stress as it arises, don't let it accumulate. Exercise. Most of you probably know that exercising comes along with endorphins, which make us happy, and so that's obviously helpful. And I want to talk a little bit about the Wellness Center and how the Wellness Center might be helpful for study abroad. So if you want to go to the next slide. So the Wellness Center can come in various ways to you and can facilitate things for you. Some people choose to come to the Wellness Center actually before they go to the study abroad program, maybe because they already know they have a tendency to be anxious, and you might have a few sessions here at the Wellness Center to kind of prepare you and to develop some better coping skills with anxiety. So that could be useful before you even leave. Can also be useful when you come back, which can sometimes, as you've discussed, can be an adjustment problem, getting used to being back in the US after having been abroad for a while. And if you're finding yourself struggling to readjust here to the US, that may be a time in your life you may consider seeking out help from the wellness center. We can also be helpful with things like if you're already a patient here, and for example, you might be on some medications for depression or anxiety. Various countries have very different rules about what you can bring into the country, especially if it's in large quantities. So you might require a letter from a provider, a psychiatric provider. That could be something that the wellness center could help with. If we can't provide you with a letter ourselves, then we can sort of help you get connected with places in Chicago that might be able to do that for you. Also, just being aware of the impact of even travel on mental health is good to be knowledgeable about that. For example, sometimes even jet lag and traveling through various time zones can actually sometimes make certain mental health conditions worse. And so kind of being aware of that and making sure that you're trying to regulate things such as sleep and appetite as soon as you arrive can be helpful to kind of help you prevent certain mental health conditions from getting worse as you're crossing a number of time zones. So those are just a few ideas. I think that's about it. I wish you all the best and feel excited for you and your experiences that you will have. Take care.
Thank you, Dr. Keller. All right, I'll introduce Marley Stein now, again, who's our Director of Study Abroad.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for round 2 of health and safety. Bob, if you just want to advance to the next slide, that would be great. All right, so continuing on about our policies related to alcohol and drugs and some just guidelines to keep you safe related to alcohol. It is important to know that the majority of injuries and illnesses on study abroad programs are related to alcohol abuse. That's probably the most common incident reports that we receive. Drug possession or use is grounds for immediate dismissal or expulsion from the program. This is consistent with both Loyola's policies and many of our provider policies as well. Breaking laws abroad can carry much more severe punishment than the US, especially if it is illegal what you are doing there. And the other thing to note is that alcohol can impair judgment. So in a new and unfamiliar environment, you want to make sure that you are putting your best foot forward. You're as cognizant as you can be as you're navigating a new environment. So please be mindful when consuming alcohol and use good judgment. If you do see some of your peers abusing alcohol or other program participants abusing alcohol, please let your on-site staff know or the Loyola Study Abroad office know so that we can step in and support Loyola students who might be struggling abroad and get them the necessary resources so that they feel supported and that we can keep them safe. Please remember along those lines to look out for one another, keep each other safe. This means if 4 of you go out to a bar together, 4 of you are coming home together. So make sure that you're looking out for all of each other throughout the process. You are texting each other when you return home to your housing arrangements, and you're continuously being in communication with someone so that somebody knows that you are safe. Next slide. In health and safety, a lot of the preparations in order to keep you safe on site need to happen before you go abroad. So if you are planning on going abroad, make sure you schedule an appointment with your physician. This is not a requirement, but many of the provider programs do actually require that you meet with a physician, but it is highly recommended if there isn't that requirement. When you meet with your physician, please remember to discuss any important health accommodations or how you will manage those abroad, any medical conditions, including mental health. You also have the wellness center to make appointments with as well if you don't have a primary care physician that you regularly see or a mental health provider. In those appointments, please discuss prescriptions and ensure you have enough to sustain you and obtain the medical name of your prescriptions in case you need to try to obtain those while abroad. My recommendation is to bring everything that you need with you along with that prescription because some medications aren't able to be found in country or it is quite difficult to obtain those or you have to have them sent from the US and that could take some time and we don't want to have there be lapse in any of your medication. So please make arrangements to ensure you have enough to sustain you before leaving. The other thing that I do want to mention is if you do need to make arrangements in country to get more prescriptions, you can reach out to our CISI healthcare provider or our AXA emergency response team through our CISI medical insurance provider to make those arrangements while in country. Some medications require you to travel with the doctor's prescription or a letter from a physician, and you can confirm this by consulting the CDC website, which has a country profile for every country that all of you are studying in, and will reference the necessary immunizations or prescription drug guidelines you need to follow. This is a list of the travel and immunization clinics in Chicagoland area. So if you do need to consult, if you're going to a place that requires yellow fever or malaria pills or something like that, you'll want to make sure that you visit one of these travel clinics. I recommend both Northwestern or UIC's travel clinic. Do your research. So review all the pre-departure materials. That means if you missed something in this presentation, go ahead and listen to the recording again. Stay updated on COVID-19 conditions in host country. Those are becoming less and less, but it's really important that if you receive communications from your on-site partner, your on-site faculty leader, that you're following those as those are coming to you. Learn about medications that may be restricted or illegal. Reference the CDC website. And lastly, research sociopolitical climate and other safety matters. Knowing more about the culture will actually keep you safe because it can make sure that your expectations align a little bit better with reality and limit the number of cultural misunderstandings. And you also have a better knowledge of what's happening in the country for which to interact with locals. Below, I have 4 resources here that you can reference through the U.S. Department of State, travel.state.gov. On that website, there are country-specific health and safety information along with exit and entry requirements. So these are things such as visas, any forms or paperwork you need to fill out to enter the country. For example, in Chile, they give you a form when you walk in. You have to make sure you have that form with you when you leave the country, or it could be quite difficult. So making sure you're reviewing that. If you have questions about that, you can always consult your study abroad advisor. So if you are if Shantae was your study abroad advisor, please reach out to me. If Bobby's your study abroad advisor, please reach out to him. And then for any of the faculty-led programs where you might have worked with Alana Carroll, please reach out to her. And then lastly, the travel advisories, they give you travel advisory warnings 1 through 4. All of you are traveling to countries 1 through 3. If it is a 2 or 3, they give specific guidelines on how to stay safe based on why it might have been given the level 3 or level 2 distinction. Some more safety tips. I know some of this might go without saying, but I think it's important that we reiterate it so that you have this in mind as you are navigating your study abroad program, so you can concentrate on making sure that you're getting a lot out learning wise as opposed to worrying about your safety consistently. Always lock doors and windows. Do not carry large amounts of cash. Be careful with your phone and other high value items. If you are carrying large amounts of cash or high value items, make sure you're putting those in multiple places, in your pocket, in your purse, in your bag, different places on your body. And one way that I think that is the most common thing that students experience pickpocketing, if they are using their GPS on their phone, they're navigating by looking down at their phone. It's out, it's very visible to anybody that might want to take it. If you are going somewhere, research ahead of time the directions so that you are able to be more present and aware of your surroundings. Also, it's a great way to practice the language. If you get a little lost, ask your peers, ask the locals so that they can help you as well. Don't buy, consume, or sell drugs. That's illegal in most of the countries you're going to. Do not drink in excess or accept drinks from strangers. Avoid public demonstrations. I understand that activism is really important to a lot of students, and it's even more important when you go abroad to understand what the local issues are. But please avoid public demonstrations. If you want to get involved in activism, ask your on-site staff ways that you can work in volunteer and community organizations, but avoid public demonstrations because they could easily turn violent quite quickly, and your safety is really important to us. Never walk home alone or accept a ride from a stranger. Travel in groups and look out for one another. Walk with a purpose. Beware of traffic patterns. Some countries, they have very narrow streets and very narrow sidewalks, so making sure you're aware of your surrounding. If you're going to a country where there's going to be swimming involved, make sure that you know your own swimming level ability, and never swim in water without a lifeguard on duty, and obey all posted warning signs before entering any body of water. One other thing to notice is to mention is that if you, for whatever reason, engage in a confrontation with somebody who's trying to pickpocket you or steal some of your items, the most important thing is your personal safety. So do not engage with them if they're asking for your valuable items. Simply give the valuable items to them and let them go on their way. Do not try to fight back in those situations. Accommodation requests. These are really important because they are ways that we're able to facilitate your experience to be the best they possibly can. Some of you may have accommodation requests on campus related to your classroom needs. However, accommodation requests abroad actually extend much further than simply things that you might need in the classroom. It extends to housing, it extends to physical and mental disability or health issues. It extends to things you might need in your housing arrangements, dietary restrictions, allergies. So it's really important that if you think you may not need it on campus, they're also reaching out to the Student Accessibility Center to make arrangements for things that you might potentially need abroad. The way it works is in the Go Global system, there is a questionnaire that asks you some questions to determine if you would need an accommodation or if you would like an accommodation. And once you indicate yes, it sends an email to the Student Accessibility Center that lets them know that you might be reaching out, and also sends the email reminder to you as well. However, it is the responsibility of the student to make sure that the accommodation request is submitted to the SAC. So it is not the study abroad office's responsibility. It is not the SAC's responsibility. It is the student's responsibility to advocate for any accommodation they may need. Once you meet with them, they will give some recommendations for how that might be able to be implemented abroad. They'll work with our office to connect with the on-site staff or the on-site university and come up with some accommodations that can be facilitated. You will be assigned an advisor or a case manager that will put together an accommodation plan for you while abroad. So it's really important that if you need this, that you do this as soon as possible, because these accommodation requests can take some time, and we want you to have peace of mind that all arrangements have been made as soon as possible. Another way that we keep you safe is this medical history self-disclosure form that has not been deployed yet into your Go Global portal. So if you log in, you won't have seen it yet, but this will be deployed shortly in the next week or two, and we'll send an email letting you know that that's in the system. This is a post-decision requirement for all programs. This is completely voluntary and completely self-disclosure. This is most important for faculty-led programs, I would say, because many of the standalone semester programs already have their own self-disclosure forms that you have to complete. But letting our team know if there's any physical or mental health concerns that you might have on this form will allow us to make sure that the necessary accommodations or awareness is in place to support you while abroad. All right, emergency resources and procedures. So while on site, if there's an emergency, this is who you would want to reach out to. So the local equivalent of 911, make sure that's saved in your phone. You'll get that as soon as you arrive on site. And many of our partners have already provided this information in their supplemental pre-departure materials. List any on-site staff contacts that are given. Usually Student Life is the best people to have in your phone. There is also a 24/7 LUC emergency phone number. This is the same number you're used to calling on campus. However, if you call it abroad, it'll route to a member of the study abroad office who can offer assistance or guidance on resources. The last number is the AXA emergency phone number. This is located on the back of the CISI card, which is your international insurance plan. If you call this number, they can either find you a provider quickly, a medical or mental health provider, and they will be able to open a case for you to start moving the process of guaranteed of payment a little bit quicker. Go to the next slide. All right, so this is some step-by-step guidelines. If it's a minor illness or an injury, your first point of contact should be your on-site staff. If more specialized care is needed, you'll need to locate a provider. There's two ways to locate a provider. When I say provider, I mean medical provider. You can either go on the CISI app or the CISI website and look through the providers that are offered there. If it's a preferred provider, it means that there's guaranteed of payment, so that you don't have to pay out of pocket initially. You get the service that you need, and then CISI pays directly for you. If it's a non-preferred provider, you would have to pay out of pocket and then later get reimbursed by CISI. That's part of why calling AXA is really helpful, because you can get that expedited a little bit faster, and there's less delays in getting the guaranteed of payment. Preferred providers accept direct claim payments from CISI. Be prepared that you may have to pay for some services out of pocket at the time of treatment. You can also, you can go to the next slide, but you can also ask your on-site staff if they have a recommendation for a specialist or provider if you need to see a medical professional. Some international universities or exchange programs actually have on-site counseling services that you can connect with. Others might have connections within the community or the city that they can reach out to for you. If you have a medical emergency, seek help without delay. Your first number that you should call is the on-site emergency number, which would be the 911 equivalent. Then either simultaneously or afterwards, contact your on-site staff emergency phone so that if there needs to be any translation support or they need to go with you to the hospital or to the doctor, they can accompany you. Next, you'll want to call the AXA assistance number, which will start your claim moving forward to hopefully guarantee your payment, direct billing from CISI a little bit quicker. And when things are calm and you feel confident about the situation, or you can also delegate someone from your on-site staff to reach out to us, you should contact the study abroad office to let us know what happened. And please ask that someone on site notify your emergency contact. They're not going to do that unless you give them that permission, unless you are incapacitated. But if you are able to let them know to notify your emergency contact, that's helpful, because if your families don't hear from you, they're going to get worried, and the sooner we can provide information to them, the better. All right, resources, registrations, and applications for safe travel. I'm going to introduce Alana Carroll, study abroad coordinator, to go over this section.
Great, thanks, Marley. Bobby, if you can just move on to the next one. As Marley mentioned, we are going to go over the registration and applications. Your safety is important to us, and so we have some registration and applications that we want to highlight and have you work through so that we have that safety in place. The benefits to these three that I have highlighted is that they are able to provide you with safety alerts. So for the area or the location that you're in. So the first one is the Alert Traveler app. This is connected within our Go Global system, and it is tied to your itinerary record, the dates and locations that we have in there. It's important to download and activate this app so that our office can do what we call push notifications should there be any sort of incident in your area or location, and vice versa. It also has the ability, if you need help, there's a push button for help that you can select, and someone can be in contact with you should something be happening. The next one is the STEP registration. This is with the U.S. Department of State, and you will register your travel so that the government can also provide you with alerts about safety conditions in your destination country. And then lastly, we'll talk about the CISI app. This is connected to that international health insurance policy that you all will be enrolled in. And so if you can move on, Bobby, to the next one. Thank you. So as I mentioned with the Alert Traveler, this is a handy app from our Go Global system that can keep you safe while you're traveling. And so again, it provides with all of these alerts, safety alerts, which is great to have while you're traveling. Because it's so important, and we want to make sure that we walk you through the process on how to download and activate this. So if you are able to, we'll try to do our best via Zoom to do this, walk you through the steps. If it works, it's great. If it does not, you can always come back to these slides that will be sent out to you later on in the week as a reference. And then again, if you're having troubles, you can always reach out to your study abroad advisor and we can assist you. Can you move on to the next slide, Bobby? So if you want to pull out your phones, would be a great opportunity. We have a QR code for iPhones on the left here, and then for the Android devices to the right. And if you scan those, they can download onto your phone. And then you'll want to select allow for the alert traveler and all of the notifications. If you move on to the next slide, Bobby, what we'll do from there, once you have that downloaded onto your phone, I want you to open up another tab in your phone and you can scan this particular QR code, and this will take you to your Go Global application. So it'll take you to the abroad.luc.edu website, and what you'll do at that point is log in and then select your application. And as you scroll down in your application, you are going to see the offline requirements, which is Alert Traveler outgoing material. If you can move forward, Bobby. Within that, you'll want to click on the bottom link where it says click here to activate Alert Traveler. What that does is it will open up the Alert Traveler activation panel. And I have images below there that show you that. So you'll want to insert your phone number and then just make sure that you also check off the box that says notify me by SMS if impacted by alerts. And so moving on from there, by completing these steps, you'll want to make sure that you're also doing the save and log in to the Alert Traveler. And then of course, it will prompt you to several OS or system permissions. It's important that you allow all the permissions so that you can stay safe and be informed of any risks while you're traveling. You can move on from there. And again, as I mentioned, we're kind of going a little fast through that whole process. So if you were successful in it, it'll mark it off in your Go Global application. If you were not, you can always go back and review those steps and work through that. And then again, you can always talk to one of us as a study abroad advisor to assist you. The next item that I want to talk about is the STEP. That's the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. This is a free service that is allowed to U.S. citizens and nationals traveling abroad to enroll their trip with the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate. And so this is important because we want you to obtain those alerts also from the government for the locations that you're traveling to. And so you will answer some questions. Bobby, if you would just move on to the next slide. What you'll do is within your Go Global, we have some links in regards to the STEP registration. And so when you click on those, you'll want to make sure that you select the STEP icon, and within there, then you'll select the tile that says traveling, enroll a trip, and get alerts. And so you'll have to answer a series of some questions about your travel plans. You'll also need your passport number, so make sure that you have that handy. And so once you're enrolled in that STEP registration, then you'll be able to get those notifications, those safety alerts, as I mentioned. You can move on to the next slide. The next one is the CISI Traveler app. This is the on-the-go information for you being insured through CISI. And so, I just mentioned here where you can go and what you need to do to download that, and then you'll have to register for those apps. We'll go over a little more in detail what that app can do for you, and then if you have questions prior to my enrolling you into that insurance, how to connect with CISI. You can move on to the next one. And this shows you what that CISI Traveler app will look like when you have that downloaded and activated. It will provide you with lots of options, such as like itinerary records. And again, I'll go over a little bit more because this essentially mirrors what they call their portal, which is on the computer. So you'll have two options with CISI: to use their portal, which is via computer, or to use their app. I always prefer the app because it's handy and it's right there on your phone, but it'll give you access to documents, how to locate a provider, any medical or security emergency information, filing a claim, or contacting CISI. And again, I'll go a little bit further in that later on in the presentation. If you can just move that along. And here we go. So what we're going to do here is we are going to talk about CISI insurance. When you are all enrolled, what you'll receive, tools and resources, how to use those resources, and claim submission and reimbursement process. You can move that along. So I have a hyperlink at the top for CISI insurance. That'll take you to our link on our Go Global page, and that will show you the policy itself. So it's a little lengthy, but it's very informative. So if you have particular questions, this is a good resource for you. As I mentioned, the study abroad office will do the enrollment. Typically, that's about 1 month prior to your departure. And so after we do that enrollment, you will receive what's called a welcome package. It's an email that you'll receive to your LUC account from enrollments@culturalinsurance.com. And the subject line will be CISI materials. Why I highlight this to you is most students think it's coming directly from our office or from a LUC account. It's not. So I want to highlight that to let you know that it's coming from CISI directly. And also to make you aware that sometimes those can go into your spam or junk folder. So make sure that you're taking a look in those folders in case you don't have your CISI welcome package. Also, again, reach out to our office if you don't have it and you've looked in those spam and junk folders, and we are happy to send that out to you again if needed. All right, if you can pass that on, great. So what's included in that welcome package? In that email, you will have a link to your participant ID card. This is important because that will have your policy. It will also have the phone numbers and the emails for what you need should something happen and you need to reach that AXA team assist. It will also have the brochure, so it'll have the details about the policy itself. It will contain a consulate letter that you have. It will also give you access to claim forms. And most importantly, it will provide you with the links to those CISI Traveler app and also to their My CISI participant portal that I talked about earlier. You can just pass that along. Great. This is a good example, or it is a sample of what you'll receive, what that CISI ID card looks like. So it will tell you that the sponsor's Loyola, it will have the policy number, it'll have your individual participant ID number, it'll have your name, it'll have the coverage dates. On the next one, the right-hand side, you'll see that it has those emergency numbers. I want to point out that AXA assistance, there are two numbers. There's a number for in the US, which is the 855 number, and then there's also a number for when you're traveling internationally. Why I want to point out both of them is for some of you, if you are wanting to continue some care with your medications or you have questions, this is a great opportunity for you to call them at the 855 number and talk to them so that you can do some of that research that Marley mentioned in regards to potentially medication or other ongoing treatment that you need. So we encourage you to do those conversations kind of earlier on before you depart to go overseas. The other number, that +001, that's when you're on site in your host country. Should something happen and there's emergency, this is the number you would call for that. Move to the next slide. Thank you. So this is the sample of the CISI participant portal. Like I said, it very much mirrors what the app is. And so this will provide you access to documents. So if you have the app or if you're using the portal, you'll be able to access the documents that you need, such as that ID card, the consulate letter, the policy itself. It also gives you the opportunity to do a provider search. So when you're over there and you are looking for a provider, you can go on either of them, the portal or the app, and you can look for those providers. And you can you can search for providers by not only by the country, but also by the city and the facility type as well. And again, in that listing of providers, they will identify who is a preferred provider and who's a non-preferred provider. So that's important for you. And so next will be some contact info, as I mentioned, with the phone numbers. So that's really key to you when you're in the moment and you need to have those discussions and reach out. So as I mentioned, if you have any pre-existing medical conditions, you'll want to initiate a case with AXA. And so the goal is to continue with your current treatment while abroad. So we want you, along with the CISI team, to do the research on the medication, to see what's the availability for the country that you're going, what's the legality, and to help you source any local providers if you need to get medication while you're abroad. We recommend also, as I said, contacting that CISI team assist about like 4 to 6 weeks prior to your departure. That allows adequate time for you and for CISI to do the research and make any necessary arrangements that you would need. Move on to the next one. And then lastly, I just provide this slide as, just assistance for you to see as far as phone numbers, email, mail. One other thing I did want to mention with your CISI is that, you also have the ability to edit while you're in your portal or on your app any additional travel you may have. So some of you may be leaving your host country like on a weekend to go to a different country. You can make those edits within the CISI app or on the portal to notate what country you're going to and the duration of time so that you can continue to receive alerts for those locations. In addition to that, if you plan to travel beyond the end date of your program, you can also go onto that CISI Traveler app or the portal, and you can extend your CISI insurance for any personal travel. I just want to make sure that you're aware, though, that this will be at your expense. So at the end, you're covered for the duration of time of your program. But if you extend beyond that and you want to continue with CISI, you will have to pay for that extension. Next slide. All right, over to Bobby.
Great. Hi, everyone. We are heading into the home stretch. I know this is a ton of information, so thanks for making it along this far. And so this part of the presentation, I'm going to be reviewing a lot of the academic information. Much of this information is going to be targeted for you semester-long students. So you fall semester students and academic year students. And so with that in mind, we're first going to be going over course approvals. The course approvals are relevant for everyone here who is not doing a faculty program. And so when you study abroad, if you want to utilize any of the courses that you take abroad for major, minor, core, or engaged learning credit, you do have to get your courses approved via the course approval system. If you do not do the course approvals, your courses will automatically come back to Loyola Chicago as general elective credits. Just to clarify what those are, because sometimes there's some confusion. General elective credits go towards the 120 credit hour requirement set by Loyola to graduate. So as many of you I'm sure are aware, when you add together all of your major credits, your minor credits, Loyola core, and engaged learning, there's some students who are well beyond 120 and they don't need general elective credits, but there's some students who, when you add all those together, they're not at 120 and they need general elective credits. So again, if you need major, minor, core, or engaged learning credit, you do have to get your courses approved. While you are submitting your courses for approval, you really only need to submit 6 to 10 courses. Keep in mind, when you study abroad, you have to be enrolled full-time, which is, the equivalent of 12 to 18 US credits. Because of this, there's really not a need to get more than 10 courses approved. This is I don't want to say overkill, but with 10 courses approved, you should be all set and good to go. And then we highly recommend that you all submit your courses and have them reviewed before you depart. This isn't possible. I know for some students who exchange programs, this might not be possible, but you absolutely should try to do this before you depart. I would even argue before you register for your courses, because you want to make sure that they're going to come back to Loyola as specific credit, the specific credit that you need to stay on track to graduate. So preparing to submit your study abroad courses for approval. So this slide specifically is outlining the preparation before you submit. So the first thing is to consult with your academic advisor to determine what is the credit you need abroad to stay on track to graduate. There's some students who have a ton of flexibility when they study abroad. There's other students who might need very specific Loyola requirements. Make sure you're working with your academic advisor to determine what those are. Once you've done this, it's important to obtain the course syllabi for all the courses that you're interested in taking on your study abroad program. If you're going to St. Louis University Madrid, I have the majority of the syllabi. So if you want to shoot me an email, I can provide you with the majority of them. For students who are doing any other programs, work with your on-site support staff. You can also shoot an email to your study abroad advisor, and we can work to make sure that you have the syllabi. Once you have the syllabi, it's important to identify who is the course approver for that department. To clarify what that means, every department at Loyola Chicago has one dedicated course approver for students who are studying abroad. So if you're a business student, there's one course approver in the business department. If you are a nursing major, there's one course approver for nursing. If you're, taking core courses abroad, there's one course approver for core. It's important to identify who this is, because if you have questions about why something got rejected, sometimes it's better to reach out directly to the course approver, because they're the ones that review your request. To determine who the course approver is, when you log into your Go Global portal, you'll see this tab called Course Approval. In the instructions here, there is the course approvers table that you can click on that's highlighted down here. When you click on the course approvers table, this is going to pull up on our website who is the actual course approver from each department. So it's really helpful for you to do this, because if you have any kinds of questions, you can just work with them directly. So once you've done all that preparation, so once you've consulted with your academic advisor, you've obtained those foreign course syllabi, and you have an understanding of who the course approver is, now you're actually ready to submit the courses for approval. And so for this next part of the presentation, I actually have we have 2 videos that we're going to play. These videos will walk you through what exactly you need to do to submit your courses for approval. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this video. If Marley, if you just confirm that the sound is working, that would be much appreciated.
It's working.
Great. Thanks, guys.
In this video, we will review the process of submitting a course approval request for a foreign course to count as Loyola Core or Engaged Learning credit. To submit a study abroad course approval request for core or engaged learning, first log into your Go Global portal. Once you are logged in, click on the tab on the right-hand side of your study abroad application titled Course Approval. Scroll down until you see Course Offerings. If you see a foreign course listed here you intend on taking abroad, select the box and click Add to Course Approval Requests. If the foreign course you plan to take is not listed here, click on the button Add a Custom Equivalent Course. Click here to access the form to submit your courses for approval. Begin by filling in the name of the foreign course, the course code, and the course description. These can be obtained from the foreign course syllabus that you already have collected. If there is not a course code, just write NA. Please note that the entire course description may not fit into the text box due to a character limit. This is okay and should not affect the outcome of your course approval request. Next, copy and paste the URL to the syllabus if it is online and attach a PDF of the syllabus in the File Upload section where it says Drop Syllabus Here. Keep in mind, if the foreign course is not taught in English and will be submitted for core or engaged learning credit, you will need to submit the original syllabus with an unofficial translation in English as well. You are only able to submit one PDF. Now that you have completed the information regarding the foreign course, you must enter the Loyola home course information for any custom equivalent course approval request. We will first begin with core. For core, type the word core into the search for home course box. You will see a pre-populated list of all the core areas, and you will need to select the Loyola core requirement you believe the foreign course fulfills. Pay close attention to the tiers, selecting Tier 1 or Tier 2 when appropriate. It is essential to click one of the pre-populated core areas or your course approval request will not generate to the correct course approver. Next, hover to the Search for Department box and type University Core Curriculum. Make sure to physically select University Core Curriculum or your course approval request may get rejected. Next, hover to the Credit Type box and select Unknown. Finally, click Add to Course Approval Requests. You should now see your course approval requests added to the bottom of the screen with the word Draft under Status. In order to submit the courses for approval, you must now click Submit Courses. The status will change from draft to pending if submitted correctly. Your requests are now pending review by the core course approver. Next, we will repeat the same process but for engaged learning. To submit a course approval request for engaged learning, type the word EXPL Engaged Learning Requirement in the Home Course box and select EXPL Engaged Learning Requirement. Next, hover to the Search for Department box and type Engaged Learning. Make sure to select Engaged Learning or your course approval request may get rejected. Next, hover to the Credit Type box and select Unknown. Finally, click Add to Course Approval Request. You should now see your course approval request added to the bottom of the screen with the word Draft under Status. In order to submit the course for approval, you must now click Submit Courses. The status will change from draft to pending if submitted correctly. Your course approval request is now pending review by the Engaged Learning Course Approver. Now that you have submitted your course approval request for core or engaged learning, an email will be sent to the course approver to review your request. Once a decision has been made, you will receive an email from studyabroad@luc.edu, including if the foreign course has been accepted or rejected. If your request has been accepted, no further action is necessary. If your request has been rejected, log into your Go Global portal and locate your course approval requests. Under the Action tab, click the two arrows next to the Status tab to view comments from the course approvers. The course approvers often leave comments with information regarding why a request may have been rejected. The Study Abroad office is not responsible for the course approval review process in foreign equivalency decision. Students should work with the course approvers directly regarding questions about the request in the case it gets rejected.
So those were videos to explain how it works for specifically core or engaged learning. Now we're going to play one more video that reviews major and minor courses that you hope to get approved during your time in which you're abroad.
In this video, we will review the process of submitting a course approval request for a foreign course to count as Loyola major or minor credit. First, log into your Go Global portal. Once you are logged in, click on the tab on the right-hand side of your Study Abroad application titled Course Approval. Scroll down until you see the button Add a Custom Equivalent Course. Click here to access the form to submit your courses for approval. Begin by following the exact same steps as the former video, which include filling in the name of the foreign course, the course code, and the course description, all of which you can obtain from the foreign course syllabus that you already have collected. Next, copy and paste the URL to the syllabus if it is online, and then upload the physical copy of the syllabus. Now that you have completed the information regarding the foreign course, you must enter the Loyola home course information. In the box, search for home course. Type the code of the Loyola course you believe to be the equivalent of the foreign one. You will then see a pre-populated list of all the courses offered at Loyola. If it is a major or minor elective course you hope to get approved, type elective and then select the appropriate course. Keep in mind it is essential to click one of the pre-populated courses or your course approval request will not generate to the correct course approver. Next, hover to the search for department box and type the Loyola department that houses the home course and select it from the drop-down bar. Next, hover to the credit type box and select major or minor. Lastly, click Add to Course Approval Requests. You should now see your course approval request added to the bottom of the screen with the word Draft under Status. To submit the course for approval, you must now click Submit Courses. The status will change from draft to pending if submitted correctly. Your request is now pending review by the department-specific course approver. We hope this video has provided guidance regarding major and minor course approval submissions. For further questions, please contact your study abroad advisor.
If any of you guys have specific questions, again, we'll hang on to this call at the end. And also feel free to shoot me an email. We're happy to kind of assist. We recognize this process can be a little bit complicated. So just some general course approval tips. For credit type, when you guys are filling this out, there's going to be 5 options that you can pick from. If you want core or engaged learning credit for credit type, you have to click unknown. In addition, there's never a need for you to select general elective or language credit. The reason for this is because any courses that aren't submitted will automatically come back as general elective credit. And then if you need language credit, it's very likely going to be for like a major requirement, for example, or a minor requirement. So you would be selecting major or minor in that case. In addition, there's no need to submit a study plan. Many of you will see when you're inside the course approval system that there is the option to submit a study plan. If you do submit a study plan, it restricts your ability to submit more courses for approval. So because of that, we just reject study plans whenever they're sent. So you do not have to send us this, or you do not have to send a study plan. We're going to transition away from course approvals now to talk a little bit about grades. And so all of you, when you go and study abroad, the courses that you take abroad will automatically come back as letter grades. If you would like to take courses abroad as pass or no pass, you absolutely need to follow the procedures that are listed in the LUC Undergraduate Studies Catalog, and you need to submit a pass, no pass request in Locus for every single course that you want to take as pass, no pass. The pass, no pass form, this is what it looks like. So you're going to have to fill out one of these for every single course that you do, that you would like to take when you're studying abroad. Oops, excuse me. There we go. And so we linked the request in this presentation, so you guys can just access it here, or you also can log into Locus, log in, go to online forms and help, and then you can click on the pass, no pass undergraduate request. Something extremely, extremely important to remember. If you want to take a course as pass, no pass, you have to do it within the first 2 weeks of the semester if you're going for the fall. If you're going abroad for the summer, you have to submit the pass, no pass request within the first week of the semester beginning. Keep in mind, this is not a study abroad like policy. This is a Loyola policy. And so if you are abroad for half the semester and you're not doing well, and then you determine you want to take pass or no pass, we will not be able to step in and intervene in that type of situation. So please just make sure you're following that time frame. There's also some kind of specific rules related to no pass that we want to mention. You are not able to take a course as pass, no pass for any major course. And so any major course that you take abroad, you do have to take for a letter grade. In addition, first year students and second year students are not able to take pass, no pass. And so just keep this in mind when you're thinking about study abroad. You are required to take courses for a letter grade abroad, and you are able to transfer them as pass, no pass only with prior approval. So again, within the first week of the semester if you're a summer student, or within the first 2 weeks of the semester if you are a semester student. Every student who goes on a study abroad program is required to take courses for credit. You are not able to go abroad and just do a not for credit option. So all the courses that you take abroad will count for Loyola credit. If you do have any pass, no pass questions, please feel free to work with your academic advisor. They're very knowledgeable and can assist you with this process. Transcripts. And so each of you, when you study abroad, we are going to keep you enrolled at Loyola Chicago. And so our way of doing that is enrolling you in our study abroad indicator course, which is called INDS 300X. As I mentioned, what this means is that while you're abroad in Spain or you're in France or wherever you might be, even though you're not on campus, this study abroad indicator course is going to be what keeps you enrolled full-time as a Loyola student. And so for all students in this presentation that are taking or that are going on a summer program, that's a non-faculty led program, we've already enrolled you in this indicator course. So you should already see it inside of your locus for summer. If you are a fall student or an academic year student, we will be doing this during the summer. So you will see this pop up in locus during the summer. Keep in mind that we enroll you in this indicator course, and it enrolls you in 15 credits for fall students or 6 credits for summer students. This indicator credit doesn't necessarily mean that that's how many credits you're going to obtain. It's just, again, that placeholder that keeps you enrolled at Loyola Chicago. And so if you end up seeing, why does it say 15 credits for fall and I'm taking 18 credits? That will be reflected once you come back to Loyola Chicago and your program concludes and all of your final grades have been posted. So with this in mind, before your program ends, you need to request that your transcripts are either sent to us via mail or they're sent to us via email. If you want the transcripts mailed to us, so we have a physical copy, this is the address that you're going to have to provide to your study abroad program provider. If you want them to be emailed, you can have them emailed to SAO transcripts@luc.edu. It needs to be emailed securely. Keep in mind, we also need to receive transcripts from the study abroad provider. If you email us your transcript, we will not accept that. And if you come into our office to hand it to us, we also won't accept that. The provider has to be the one that sends it to us. If you want detailed instructions on what you have to do, everyone in this call right now, for one of your post-decision requirements in your Go Global portal, there's a material called Request Your Transcript Gets Sent to the Study Abroad office. All the information will live inside there. It is normal for grades to not show up for 1 to 3 months after your program ends. It does take us some time to process them, so please just keep that in mind. Also, it's important, I would say, don't request that your transcripts are sent to us until your final grades have been posted. Once your final grades are posted, that's the best time for the transcripts to be sent to our office, whether it's via email or whether it's via mail. With regards to registration next steps, for students who are studying abroad fall semester, we're going to place you in that placeholder course beginning on July 1st. For all students who are going abroad fall or academic year 2024, your holds need to be removed from your account before May 1st. If you do have a hold on your account, we'll email you about this, but please get them cleared before the 1st of May. In addition, all of your on-campus courses for Loyola must be dropped by May 1st as well. And so I know sometimes students will register for courses at Loyola Chicago the semester that they're going abroad, just as like a backup plan, just in case something were to happen with study abroad. You do need to have those removed before May 1st. If you're a summer student, this information was already communicated to you, so there shouldn't be any further steps for you. There are some academic considerations we want to make you all aware of. So again, semester students, you need to be enrolled full-time when you're abroad, which is the equivalent of 12 to 18 US credits. For any students that are attending an exchange program, make sure you understand the foreign university credit conversion and the foreign university grade conversion. Again, this is specific for exchange students, which are semester and year-long students. And if you click on these links directly, it'll pull you up to the credit conversion. Another important academic consideration, ask about final exams. Are there any recent exam period dates, which are usually the exam period date in which you can make up exams if you can't be there to take them in person, or if you end up failing one. It's also important to talk to your on-site support staff about differences in US academics versus other international academic institutions. A common example of this, in the States, people are very used to getting like participation points and attendance points coupled with like homework and exams, and that will make up your final grade. Oftentimes in other countries, your final grade might be based on 1 or 2 exams. And so talk to your on-site support staff just to get an idea, like academically, what does your program kind of look like? Because you want to make sure that you're prepared for that. If you have any questions about your academic policies and procedures, you can view all of them inside of your Go Global portal, or feel free to reach out to your study abroad advisor. With that, I'm going to hand things off to the esteemed Alana Carroll to talk to you guys about payments.
Thanks, Bobby. If you could just move the slide forward, that'd be great. Hi, everybody. So this slide is just a nice glimpse of the breakdown of the fees and the amounts by programs. Again, you'll receive this recording along with the slides, so you can always go back and take a look at this at a later point. And then again, you can always reach out to our office, study abroad at luc.edu, or to one of your advisors. So the first part talks about the CISI insurance. This is the mandatory insurance fee, and that will be different depending upon the term that you're going. So if you're doing a fall or spring program, the cost for that will be $300. If you're doing a summer program, that's $200, and those will be billed to your Bursar account. The next is the SAO admin fee. This again will vary depending upon which term you are going and which provider you are using. So for example, those of you going on affiliate programs such as API, IES, USAC, etc., you will pay either $500 for that fee for the summer, or $1,000 for the fall or spring. And again, that will be billed to your Bursar account in Locus. In regards to tuition, room, and board amounts, again, this will vary depending upon your provider. If you are going on one of the affiliates, you will pay the affiliates directly for this. If you are going on one of our exchanges, faculty-led or Jesuit affiliates, this will be billed again to your Bursar account. One of the things that I want to note is that the summer e-bills were generated as of last week on April 15th. So you will see some of those costs already on your bill, and those will be due by May 5th. And then for the students that are going in the fall, that e-bill will be generated on July 15th, and those fees will be due by August 5th. So again, this is just a quick summary. You can always look at the cost sheets that are associated with your programs as well in your Go Global. You can reach out to our office, or you can reach out to one of the study abroad advisors as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Alana. And so now we're going to just kind of go into the more nitty-gritty pieces of advice for preparing for your study abroad program. So first and foremost, with regards to money, we highly recommend taking out some of the local currency before you actually depart for the program. The reason for this is, imagine you arrive in country and you go to an ATM to take money out and your card gets rejected, and then the place that you're at doesn't accept credit cards. It's important for you to have just a little bit of money on you in the local currency to be able to survive. So we highly recommend just taking some money out just before you depart, so you have that in case of emergencies. This is also a little outdated, I think, for 2024, but contacting your banks and credit card companies to let them know of your travel plans. Although it's not necessarily required in 2024, it still is a good idea to do so. You're also going to want to make copies of your cards, both front and back, just in case you lose them or there's any kind of emergency. Also have multiple ways to access your funds. And so this might look a little bit different for, different kinds of students. One app that we recommend you download is called Wise. If you are on Wise, for example, and you want to convert dollars to euros, you can do so directly from your phone, and the currency conversion is usually better than one that you would get at an airport. So we highly recommend Wise. If you want to compare costs from the country where you're going to be studying abroad at and Loyola Chicago, you can do so on these two websites right here. So it'll compare like common things like groceries to things like public transportation. So this will give you a good idea of like how much money you should bring when you're on the program. So feel free to reference that to get an idea of how much money to bring. With regards to communication, please call your loved ones when you arrive. I have what's called a helicopter mother, which means that my mother is always around me, always wants to know what's going on. And so my first time that I studied abroad, I wasn't able to contact her right when I landed because I didn't have service right away. And I didn't tell her that before I left. And so she was extremely worried because she knew I was going to land at, let's say, 3 p.m. And it was 6 p.m. and she still hadn't heard from me. So just let your loved ones know that you will contact them as soon as you have phone service and you're able to do so. Also, discuss a plan and expectations prior to departure and set up a communication plan. Keep in mind, one of the big ways to kind of navigate the frustration phase of culture adaptation is via communication. So having like a set communication plan with loved ones back at home. When I was abroad, I had weekly conversations with my mom every Sunday. We would have coffees together, and this helped kind of make me still feel connected with my family, even though I was far away. So feel free to do this. Also, make sure your cell phone plan meets the requirements of your program. And so typically there's kind of two different things that students do when it comes to international phone service. The one thing that I'd say students do is if you talk to your current provider, whether it's Sprint or AT&T or Verizon, you can pay for an international plan. So if this is the route that you want to go on, you should be able to do that directly with your US phone provider. This is usually a little bit more costly, but then as soon as you arrive in country, you probably will have service. The other option that you can do is prior to departing, making sure that your current phone is unlocked. If you call your phone company, again, whether it's Sprint, AT&T, or Verizon, they will be able to let you know if your phone is unlocked. And if it's not, they'll kind of advise you on what you need to do to get it unlocked. Once you get your phone unlocked, once you're abroad, you can just buy a SIM card in the country that you're going to be visiting, and then that will give you a temporary SIM card that will be attached to like a phone number from that country. So you'll just have service as you do here in the States, but obviously in another country, and you would have an international phone number as well. This is usually the more affordable option, but again, it takes kind of an extra step because you're going to have to go to a phone store right when you arrive in country to get that SIM card. So both are viable options, and you have the chance to pick whatever one you want to do. With regards to apps, WhatsApp is very common for messaging when you're abroad. So not a lot of people will use like regular texting, like SMS. Very likely they'll use WhatsApp. So feel free to download it to familiarize yourself with it. Other apps, WeChat, iMessage, Skype, Google Voice, or others that you can use. Make sure you understand like your roaming charges and such, because we want to make sure you're avoiding those when you are abroad so you don't get charged. Just some other tips. Too long, didn't read, just reviewing some of the stuff that we already talked about. Very important to make sure you have the correct outlet when you're abroad. Depending on the country in which you're going to be, the outlets like charge your phones and things of that nature might look differently. Amazon sells pretty much any outlet that you could need for any country, and they're usually pretty affordable. So that's what we would recommend. Also very important, check the local climate. Funny story, but we had a student previously go to Argentina for a summer program. Our summer is Argentina's winter. And so she didn't research the local climate before she went. And then when she got there, she was very surprised to find out that it was winter there and it was freezing outside. So check the local climate. Do not overpack. Many of you are very likely going to buy clothes when you're abroad. They're very likely less expensive when you're abroad. So don't overpack. Pretty much anything that you could need, you could buy on the ground when you actually are abroad. Very likely you won't need to bring bedding, so that should save a lot of space, but talk to your on-site support staff or your housing coordinator. They'll be able to give you more information. Again, contacting your bank, super important. Next, Dr. Keller talked a little bit about this, but there are some countries I would say that aren't as sensitive to like allergies and food preferences as here in the States. For students who are going to be in a country that's not like English speaking, it's very important that you understand how to advocate for yourself. So this either means looking up how to like advocate for yourself in the language in which you're going to be abroad. So, looking up how to say, I am allergic to peanuts in another language, super important, or just writing down how to say it, like on a card. And then when you get to a place, if you don't speak the local language, you can just show that to them. Very important that you understand how to advocate for yourself. Also, keep in mind, it's important to be open to new foods when you study abroad. Part of the excitement of studying abroad is having the chance to try new things. So I encourage everyone to try things maybe they haven't tried before. And then with regards to moving around in your host country, just practice, common knowledge, not overlooking at your phone when you're traveling around. Also keeping in mind that you might look a lot different than people from that host country. So people might stare at you. Those are things that are uncomfortable, but oftentimes happen to students when they're abroad. So if anyone's uncomfortable or you want further assistance, feel free to reach out to your study abroad advisor or talk to your on-site support staff as well. They'll be able to assist you with that. And with this, I'm going to hand things off to Marley, who is going to bring us home for this presentation.
Hi, everybody. I put some answers to the question in the chat, so if you have questions, please reference that. So next steps are to review the post-decision requirements in your study abroad portal. Make sure you notify bank and credit card companies of your travel plans. This is becoming less and less required, but if your bank still requires that, make sure you do that. Sometimes they'll just automatically update it based on where your credit card or debit card is being used. This was mentioned in Money Matters, but make sure that you are using ATMs that are affiliated with your bank, or you know what the rates are for taking cash out for your bank. Visit your doctor and talk prescriptions and on-site treatment. Complete the course approval process if necessary. So again, only for major, minor, core, or engaged learning requirements. General electives, it is not required, and faculty-led programming, it is not required. Make copies of important documents to leave with family and keep with you during travels. So have one set of copies somewhere else in your luggage or your suitcase, in addition to maybe in your wallet, and leave a copy with a trusted family or friend back home. Remember, this is sensitive information, so be sure who you're leaving it with and when you're and where you're leaving it. These are the 3 apps that you need to make sure you have on your phone. So STEP program, app/registrations, the STEP program, Alert Traveler app, and the CISI app. The Alert Traveler and CISI should be on your phone. STEP is something you register online. One thing to mention about the CISI app and the difference between the Alert Traveler app is that the CISI app is helpful if you do want to track your independent travel in there and have us be able to be notified if there's an incident where you might be independently traveling. So if you want to mention your independent travel on the CISI, plug that in, it'll give us alerts. We'll contact you if there's any risk. Alert Traveler app is really only going to track you and give you notifications based on where your itinerary record is. So if you were registered in Madrid, that's where it's going to give us updates and updates on what's going on there in terms of health and safety. Unless, of course, you enable your location services, which is not a requirement, just highly recommended. In which case, if you travel to London, for example, it'll give you updates based on your current location because you have location services enabled. But everybody should have notification services enabled so that we can contact you regardless of where you are with a push notification. So make sure that in the settings you have push notification services. And then please read all pre-departure materials provided by your host program. We gave you a very general surface level overview of preparing for travel, but what's most important is that you familiarize yourself with the home country and host culture, because that will allow you to be safer, more aware, manage expectations, navigate cultural adaptation a little bit more smoothly. So make sure you're looking into those resources from your program provider or program institution.
Great, and I'm just going to throw in a shameless plug. And so this Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m., we are hosting a study abroad mixer. This mixer is a kind of a casual opportunity to talk to other students who have been abroad already. So we have around 25 alumni that are going to be there. Our alumni have, some of them have been at Fordham, London. Some of them are alumni of St. Louis University, Madrid. Many of them have done faculty-led exchanges. And so pretty much we have a representative from every program type across the board. This event is a really great opportunity to actually talk to people who have been on that program to kind of give you more like on the ground level support and advice. So please feel free to join us. This is the QR code to register. There's also a link in here if you want to click on this. This is not required. This is going to be optional. And so please feel free to join us again this Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. If you have any questions, feel free to follow us on social media, LUC Study Abroad, or just shoot us an email. Please tag us in all the photos that you post. We will be living through you guys as we are staying here in Chicago. And then we also have an assessment to fill out that just kind of allows you a space to talk about what you think we did well, what things you think we should add to pre-departure orientation in the future. So please feel free to fill this out. Lastly, we will be emailing everyone here the presentation by the end of the week. So if you have any questions, you'll have the chance to reference it once again. But with that, this concludes our pre-departure orientation. Our professional staff will hang on just in case people have additional questions. And it looks like I'm being signaled by Marley. I think she wants to add something. So feel free
Yeah,
to.
I just wanted to add one thing since a lot of you have expressed that you wanted to see who else might be traveling to abroad to the same region as you. I know we have a smaller group. We don't have all of our students here, but we're not able to share information without the consent of the individual with others that might be going to that destination. So if you're interested in sharing your information in this chat with at least the people in this room, go ahead and put the name, city, country, city where you're traveling to, country where you're traveling to, and either your Instagram handle or your email, whichever you prefer to be contacted via. But again, that's only if you would like to do so as well.
Great. Well, we will stick on for a few more minutes, but everyone, please have safe travels. And we're so excited for you that you get to go abroad, and we hope to be in touch with you.